At Ascension, we're reading through the book of Psalms, all 150 of them, in the course of 1 year. And so for this past week, our readings included Psalms 4, 5, and 6. These three Psalms are classified as Psalms of lament, crying out to the Lord. You hear words of distress, in prayer to God, crying out to God. But there's also these glimpses of hope in the midst of these Psalms of lament as well, glimpses of peace and security. I'd like to point out a couple of those examples. One of them comes at the very end of Psalm 4, where after David cries out to the Lord and is in this distress and looks to the Lord for relief, he says, "In peace I will both lie down and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety." So at the end of the day, in peace, he still is able to lie down and rest because the Lord makes him dwell in safety. A beautiful expression of faith. And I think for us too, that come what may in the course of any day, we can still, at the end of the day, lie down in peace, knowing that the Lord makes us to dwell in safety. He is with us. Another beautiful verse about that hope we have in our God comes in chapter 5, Psalm 5, verse 7, where the psalmist, again, David writes, "But I, through the abundance of your steadfast love, will enter your house. I will bow down toward your holy temple in the fear of you." That phrase, steadfast love, I want to talk about that for a second. The Hebrew word there is chesed. Steadfast love is usually how it's translated. Luther called it the goodness of God in action, that Hebrew word, the goodness of God in action. It's a word that occurs 125 times in the book of Psalms. And so be looking for that word as you go through the readings. Steadfast love. That steadfast of the Lord that never ceases, never comes to an end. His goodness in action. That goodness in action that we especially see in our Savior, Jesus Christ. So be looking for that word through the Psalms. Also, before we conclude, just one thought about our worship this weekend. We'll be chanting a psalm again in worship at our Saturday night service, our early service on Sunday. We'll be singing and speaking a psalm responsively at our 11 o'clock service. But for those of you who will be in worship during the time of chanting, if you want to kind of get warmed up for that, practice that a little bit. In the front part of the hymnal Lutheran service book, if you have a copy at home, and if you don't, I encourage you to get one. There are all the psalms, all 150 psalms are in the hymnal. And then you also have these psalm tones, is what they call them, that helps with the chanting of the psalms. So they are lettered A through K. We're going to be doing tone A. So if you have a hymnal at home, if you have a piano at home, or you're musically inclined, you can practice psalm tone A and be warmed up and ready to go for this weekend in worship. I pray God's blessings upon your reading through the Psalms as we rejoice that we can every night lay down in peace and in safety in the Lord and rejoice in His steadfast love for us.